enormous news out of the MLS. I mean, this is football. This is the biggest star in football, the biggest reach, a hero. Some would say the greatest to ever play the game, coming to the MLS when he was offered to go to other teams. This isn't a twilight star, not the books or the movies, but a player in the twilight of their career. It's not a guy who doesn't have it anymore. It's not an aged out guy who no one else wants. This is a player that every team in the world would love to have and would pay a huge sum to have. And he would make those teams title contenders, right? He makes every team better, coming off of a World Cup win, all that stuff. To be in the MLS, to be at Inter Miami, cannot be understated how big of a deal this is. We're going to listen to the ESPN crew react, and we will react along with them.
Latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Craig Burley and a very happy Shaq Islip, who keeps saying West Ham champions of Europe. I'm not quite sure if that equates. Lots going on today. Only one place that we can start, though. Donny van der Beek wants out at Manchester United. The old ones, the classic. Lionel Messi is heading to MLS. He's going to sign with Inter Miami. I've made the decision that I'm going to Miami. For more on this, let's welcome in, shall we, Frank Leboeuf. But let's start with Sebastian Salazar. Seb, how excited are you as a man who's followed MLS for a long time that this is happening?
Yeah. I got a haircut, can't you see, just from Messi's arrival.
So a little bit. So I love the MLS. A few years ago, it's probably been, now it's probably been closer to 10 years. But when I was a reporter, I used to work on Saturdays. And I used to prop up my iPad and watch the MLS all day. And I fell in love with the game. I fell in love with the MLS, the league, the team. I really started to support domestic soccer here in the United States. And since then, I've stayed in touch with the MLS, and I love watching it to this day. Watch games right now. And I will say this is perfect time for the MLS to get Messi, because I feel like we went through kind of this run where the MLS was super exciting. We had a ton of great players. We had a ton of household names. We had good teams. We had exciting dynamic play. But then a lot of those players got out of the MLS, whether it's Gareth Bale or Wayne Rooney was a player, and Zlatan and a lot of those players. And now you're seeing the MVPs be, I don't want to say names that aren't household names, but they aren't, right? So getting a player of this caliber now is so needed for the MLS. They need like a boost. They need a little bit of oomph. A lot of our best players, and our being the United States, they've now started to go play in Europe. So that's another huge miss for the MLS, where a lot of the times you could watch a team and there'd be 3 or 4 or 5 national team players on that team. The MLS is kind of devoid of that now. A lot of the national team are playing for huge clubs. So the MLS did get weaker, I think, in the last couple of years. Messi coming over changes things. It revitalizes the entire league. It gives credit and credence to the play, especially if Messi can be really good. We've seen some players come over and kind of, go through the motions. When Pirlo came over, and people kind of said that he was just kind of sleepwalking through games. Other players come in and they play. Like Wayne Rooney came in and he was working his ass off. I'll give him that. Gareth Bale came in, won a title. Carlos Vela has been here for a while, and he's taking it very seriously. So different strokes for different folks. But if Messi comes in and is Messi, what this will do for the MLS is crazy. I mean, I saw a thing the other day where Inter Miami gained, it was like 4 million Twitter followers or Instagram followers after the news of Messi came in. And they now have the most followers out of any team in the American major sports. Any NFL team, MLB team, NBA team, the most followed team is Inter Miami. Which if you would have said that last year, or even 6 months ago, it would have been the craziest thing you ever said.
This is massive. It's impossible to really overstate just how big this is going to be for the league. You can add up all the guys, David Beckham, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who have come to Major League Soccer and somewhat cut through, and I don't think they hold a candle to what Lionel Messi is right now, coming off a World Cup final, which he not only won, but he won in front of billions of people. So this is going to be massive for the league on an international scale. It's going to be huge for the league on a domestic scale, and it gives Inter Miami the opportunity to become the franchise in Major League Soccer. Now, based on their track record, it's not an opportunity you can bet that they'll grab, but I think it sets Inter Miami nicely up now. You've got Lionel Messi, you've got talk of a downtown stadium soon, and of course you've got one of the locales that is absolutely impossible to beat when you talk about recruiting big stars.
This is great for the geography of the league too, because right now, who's recruiting the big stars? LAFC, LA Galaxy, Inter Miami. That's where the international stars want to go. No offense to the, Real Salt Lake and, Sporting Kansas City, but if we're going to recruit these stars, they're going to go to these teams. So it's great that the teams are embracing that and they're doing that. Does it help the parity of the league? We'll worry about that in a different day. But another thing with Messi too is that you would assume he's going to recruit players to come play with him. So if all of a sudden, Di Maria or players like that are coming to play in the MLS with Messi, and we have a front, if Inter Miami has a front three that could be the front three for Barcelona, that could be the front three for PSG, if that kind of stuff, if that level of play is here, what that's also going to do is give a lot of international respect to the MLS. And then will the MLS kind of get folded into the Champions League? Who the hell knows? Will the league in a couple of years become one of those respected leagues? I don't know, but it's possible now. And before Messi came over, or before a player of his level came over, it probably wasn't possible. But those things moving forward are things that the MLS may be able to kind of talk about.
Seb, going through the deal, obviously there's quite a few added extras. One being that he looks
team
like he's
ownership,
going to get part of the Apple subscriptions that are going to be
that's
as a
huge, yep,
of him signing for Inter. Deal with Adidas as well, and part ownership of Inter Miami.
If he wants, it's an option.
They're making this deal as sweet as possible. Obviously, when you look at MLS salaries, up until a few years ago, the max a guy would get was like $5 million a year. We've seen Lorenzo Insigne bump that up to 14, 15. You could see Messi getting 20 or 25 on the books at Inter Miami, but they're going to obviously have to make up hundreds of millions of dollars there. This is unprecedented. We've never seen guys get a percentage of a TV deal. We've never seen guys get a percentage of a merch deal. And I think we have seen, in the case of David Beckham, somebody get a chance to buy a percentage of a club in the future. And we know that that can be worth hundreds of millions. Still, it's worth pointing out, this is a total package, even with all of the extras, worth hundreds of millions, not billions, which is, what it was going to add up to if he went to Saudi Arabia. So Messi turning down probably hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, he turned down whatever it was, $400 million from Saudi Arabia to go play in their league. And to turn down hundreds of millions of dollars a year like that really says something. The Apple TV deal, I think, is the most interesting part of that. The subscriptions, you would assume, are going to take an enormous jump. I mean, like I said, 2 to 4 million people followed that team overnight just because of Messi. You don't think they're going to buy Apple TV to watch him? You don't think all those people in Argentina are going to watch their guy? They are. They will get Apple TV just for this. I will probably get Apple TV just for this. So I mean, whatever the percentage is, that is a ton of money. The option to have part ownership of Inter Miami, crazy. So it is turning down a lot of money, but at the same time, it's hard to compete with those benefits.
Dollars to come to Major League Soccer in Inter Miami.
Yeah, the number, of course, associated with the Saudi Arabia move is $1 billion net over those 2 years. Does it make sense to you?
Yeah, and I don't think it was as much about coming to Major League Soccer as it was the cultural differences of living in the United States and Miami and living in Saudi Arabia. And that is a package, living here and playing the sport that you love and you've been arguably the best at. Look, if there's a trickle effect over the years and he moves the needle, which he will do, and boy, they need that
he will move the needle.
There's no doubt about that. It's going to be super exciting for Inter Miami fans, but I think around the country, when Inter Miami travel, the fans of the towns and cities that Messi's going to play at, they're going to see him firsthand. So that is super exciting to see a guy who hopefully still fit and sharp and can still do it. But there needs to be some long-term vision here in terms of I go back to that word trickle effect of other players eventually coming, because he's 35 and it might be a year or two and then that sort of movie moves on. So, you know, I think they'll be hoping, Major League Soccer that is, and the TV networks, that, you know, there's others will follow. Unfortunately, at the moment, we're talking about the others are all heading to where Messi, we thought he might have headed, is Saudi Arabia, who seem to be throwing billions every.
Yeah, I mean, the Saudi Arabia money is insane for what they're throwing these players. But I think Craig is right, where I think a lot of players, if they look at, okay, I can make blank amount of money in Saudi Arabia, or I can make, you know, less, but I'm living in Los Angeles versus traveling to and from the Middle East, I think they would choose Los Angeles, especially if it's for a year or two, and it's for someone like Messi, who I'm sure he's not counting, you know, he's not counting his, he's not looking at his bank statements every other day. It's also interesting when he talks about traveling. So that's something you don't think about a lot, is he does have to go play these road games. You know, he does have to go on the road. Imagine what that's going to do for the attendance of those games. I mean, imagine if he's going to go play Chicago, or he's going to go play FC Dallas or something. Those games, you would think, are basically going to be sold out. For those fans and locally to have the chance to watch Messi, that's wild. I mean, I think it will have that trickle-down effect. I think it will have a huge impact on the coverage of MLS. That's something else that's important, that the United States media, you know, the MLS gets coverage on ESPN, no doubt. The MLS gets coverage on Fox Sports, no doubt. But Messi is going to get a whole lot more coverage. There's going to be a whole lot more MLS on ESPN's Instagram. There's going to be a whole lot more MLS on SportsCenter. Right? People will be talking about that more. It's going to lift everything. It's going to lift the analysts. It's going to lift the soccer-related shows on these sports networks. It's going to boost everything that they have. You know, MLS's TV deal, the money coming in, what that can do for the league, the expansion, other players coming in. Whatever they say, a rising tide lifts all ships or whatever. This is the highest tide possible. Lionel Messi coming to Miami is I mean, it's hard to imagine how this isn't the biggest success that the MLS has ever had, the biggest moment for growth and expansion that the MLS has seen in their entire existence, and is coming at a perfect time with the Women's World Cup coming up. So soccer in America is just at kind of it's really getting hyped up. It's really kind of coming to a fever pitch here. And with all of this coming together at the same time, it feels like the next 2 years is just going to be kind of that renaissance of soccer that we saw back the last time we saw it was when the United States men's team made a run in the World Cup.
Every sport going at the moment, and that's a deeper, bigger story. But, you know, in terms of bringing a player in who just makes people stand up and take notice, and even the very average and casual soccer fan here in the United States probably knows who Lionel Messi is.
Oh, yeah.
And so that is absolutely huge. And, of course, I think from a family perspective,
I think that's.
I think the main thing for him, listening to that interview, it's family first. Yeah, it's not going to be. He's not going to be in $100 a week. He's going to be getting paid huge sums. Yeah. So when you evaluate what the difference is quality of life. And then obviously there needs to be a return on the pitch as well. So super exciting all round.
It's not going to be anonymous. You know, you talk about coming here and like disappearing.
Yeah, I think, well, he did mention that, didn't he?
Yeah, he's not under the spotlight because obviously Miami and the Latin American community.
Yeah, he's not.
That's the thing. I'm not sure that there's a place in the world that Lionel Messi can go to and not just be home.
So what they're talking about there is that for a long time the MLS was this place where big-time players could come and be anonymous, right? Like someone like Higuain. When Higuain came to the MLS, if Higuain's walking around New York, no one knows who he is. Maybe some people, but not really, right? Like, people just don't know soccer, you know, international stars like they do with the NFL players or NBA players. Like Toni Kroos. If Toni Kroos, who's been at the international level and at Real Madrid, as high as you can possibly be, if Toni Kroos went to Los Angeles and went to dinner, no one would know. He would have to get reservations. Like, he couldn't just walk in and get a seat. People wouldn't know who he was, right? Messi ain't that. And they're right. There's probably not a place in the world that Messi can go and be anonymous. They know who he is. If Mike Trout walked down Bourbon Street right now, no one would know who Mike Trout is. If Lionel Messi walked down Bourbon Street, he's getting stopped immediately for pictures. 1,000,000%. He is that high level of a star. This is the biggest star in the world. Globally, he is the guy. It's him and Ronaldo. Those are the two people. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if Ronaldo, depending on the money situation, I'm not sure of the contract with Saudi Arabia, but I wouldn't be surprised if Ronaldo saw this and said, well, if Messi's going to Miami, I'll go to LA. I'll go play in Los Angeles. And then imagine if the MLS, even for one season, even for half a season, if they had Ronaldo and Messi. Imagine that. I mean, the trickle-down effect, it could be enormous for it. But yeah, he will not come here and be anonymous. No way.
For want of a better expression.
But there's a level of hounded.
Connecticut. Exactly.
Connecticut.
Well, yeah, you might get away with it up here.
Stevie's house.
but so to that point, and while I understand the sentiment that he's trying to find somewhere for his family to be happy, that he can reconnect and go to games with his kids, stuff like that. Again, wherever he goes, he will be recognized. Whatever he does, there will be crowds following him, and that almost goes without saying. There's so much about this that excites even the casual soccer fan here in the U.S. I don't think the league has seen somebody who captures the public attention in this way since David Beckham.
Yeah,
and
no way.
spoke about all the players that came, and we can argue about who was better or who wasn't. Nobody just captured the attention purely the way that David Beckham.
No, I mean, just like the players I've already mentioned, like Wayne Rooney, Andrea Pirlo, Steven Gerrard, Gareth Bale, even to an extent. Those guys, they're not even in the same stratosphere of moving the needle as Lionel Messi. Pirlo is a great example. He played in New York. Andrea Pirlo would walk down, if he walked through New York, no one would notice him at all. At all. Steven Gerrard, you think he was getting noticed in Los Angeles? Absolutely not. Zero chance. Lionel Messi gets the attention of the entire world.
Beckham did. Now all of a sudden in Lionel Messi, you have someone who exceeds Beckham in that regard and capturing the attention, but then exceeds everybody in terms of talent. So it's a lot almost for the league to process all at once, and then going to a team that are desperately struggling right now. I mean, it couldn't be a contrast between who Inter Miami are as a club performance-wise and what Lionel Messi represents as a player. So it'll be interesting to see how this all just kind of comes together and takes shape.
Shaka brings up a good point here because Messi's coming into a side that is bad. Even after his announcement, they're not the favorites to win this thing. They're not even close to the favorites to win this thing, right? So it is a lot to process both for the league and for Inter Miami, because now it's hard to imagine Messi coming in and Inter Miami being really bad. You know, like Messi's never, ever been in a situation where he's not good. The team's not good. He's not competing for major trophies. He's not doing all that stuff. And he could be thrust into a situation where they are mediocre, which is kind of hard to even imagine, like, especially considering the level of play that he'll be facing in the MLS. To know that he is that much better than the opponents, but his team can't get the results, is an interesting dilemma for him and for Inter Miami. As far as the MLS, they do have an interesting dilemma as well of, okay, we have this unbelievable opportunity for the next 2 years. What do we do? How do we exploit this? How do we grow as fast as possible? What are expansion plans? How can we double down on this as much as we possibly can? This is the moment. The iron is hot. Someone has to come up with a strategy of how they're going to strike.
David Beckham was a big circus, and it was huge when he came to Major League Soccer. But it was all about the show around David Beckham. People, I would imagine, and I played against David Beckham, he's a fine player. But I would imagine people around the country were not queuing up to come and see him play soccer.
Right.
It was more about the fanfare
just seeing him.
Him.
He's a celebrity.
The difference here is people are going to get a first-hand view, those that get to the stadium in particular, to see this little magician working. Now, it's not the guy that was in the Barcelona 2011 team with Pep Guardiola that was absolutely, you could argue it was one of the greatest club sides ever. But he's still a guy that's just won the World Cup.
Yeah, he's not that far away from that.
Of producing some magical moments.
To tell you how big a stallion Messi is and tell you the impact he's already having, Craig's gone full Don Johnson.
I know. I know.
I mean,
he's getting that Miami vibe early.
He has.
I'm heading down
full
there
Don
tonight.
Johnson.
I know.
That tells you all you need to know.
I've got my detective card here.
The shirt's not fit anymore.
No.
Frank, this just seems to make sense for everybody.
Yeah, and it does to me too. The only thing is I'm sad today. I mean, we are turning a big page of the history of football with the big story between Ronaldo and Messi. That's the end of it. We saw Ronaldo leaving, and now it's Messi, so we're going to go for another chapter of maybe fantastic players, but those two drove us to the top of the top for more than a decade, even almost 2 decades. So it's
that's a good point too. You know, it is sad to an extent that the days of Ronaldo and Messi in the Champions League and, you know, fighting for trophies and all that, those days are over. You know, that Ronaldo in Saudi Arabia League and Messi now at the MLS, with, you know, neither one of them really have a chance to chase those international trophies. It is certainly a turning of the page for international soccer.
It's a big turning page, and I'm sad but happy that he made that decision, as Craig and Shaka explained, that it was better for his family. It was not maybe the best in terms of financial deal, but at the end of the day, you know, I don't really know what the Saudi Arabian championship level is. But I know that if you want to go for a better life and if you want to have a good championship, yeah, you have to go to the MLS. That's a very good deal. That's very pleasant. You're gonna love your life and you're gonna love the football because the football is a good level. Yes, it's not Europe anymore. It's not South America, but it's a very good level. And Messi has still something to say. And it's a very important sentence from Craig about the fact that they are getting, the MLS is getting somebody who just won the World Cup. It's not somebody who's done. It's somebody who just got World Cup champion.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was kind of saying earlier, where every team, from PSG to Barcelona to Manchester United to Manchester City to Chelsea to whatever, you know, Bayern Munich to Inter Milan to any of these teams, they would, like, Messi plays on all those teams. Messi is arguably the best player on all those teams. When Beckham and Zlatan and Pirlo, when they came over here, they were done. You know, their best were way behind them. This is a guy who just won the World Cup. This is a guy who could still deliver at that level for international teams, European teams at the highest possible level. So you could argue this is the first time that the MLS is getting a player of this quality at not the peak of their powers, but not that far away from the peak of their powers. It's going to be wild to watch. It really is, because I watched a ton of the Pirlo, Gerrard, that whole era. I watched a ton of those games. It didn't look that much different. You know, like when Pirlo was going through the midfield in the MLS, it didn't look like this is a guy playing way above his level. Zlatan, same thing for Zlatan. It didn't look, you could tell he was really good, but it wasn't a man amongst boys. Messi will be. When Messi has the ball, when Messi's doing things, it is going to look like that. And I mean, how can you not watch something like that?
Champion, and it's a big deal for this country who wants to develop soccer at the best. And yeah, I'm happy for the MLS. If Messi's happy, I'm happy, but I'm sad for football.
Seems Paris wasn't big enough for the both of them, was it? LeBouf and Messi.
LeBouf and Messi.
There's only one winner there.
At least I know we'll get to Barcelona. I know we'll get to that, but at least we can stop. Andy's father can stop piping on about this Barcelona thing. At least that's done.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Well, I figured we're going to talk about that. That's why I prefaced that by saying we'll talk about it in a moment.
Miami are obviously going to try and monetize this as much as possible, Seb. You mentioned the downtown stadium, but that's a long way away. The stadium at the moment has got 18,000 capacity. Will they move to like the Hard Rock Stadium or a bigger venue? Because surely you could sell that out however many times over.
Yeah, exactly. You're bringing Messi in. I don't think 18,000 is going to be enough. The NFL stadium there, as you mentioned, the Dolphins' home holds about 50, 60. You could sell that out quite easily. The demand is off the roof. You can't get 2023 season tickets anymore. You can.
But just that, like, think about that, right? Think about if you're working for Inter Miami, and now you have to decide, like, okay, we have this stadium, but it ain't big enough by about 3x. So do we play in an NFL stadium for the next 2 years? How do we go about that? What are the logistical hurdles to that? How many people can we get in here? What do we do? Same with the stadiums. I mean, how crazy would it be if every team said, look, if you have the opportunity, we're going to play somewhere else. We're not going to waste this and play in a 10,000 seat stadium. If you can, for the Inter Miami game, we're going to play it in the NFL's stadium. We're going to boost it up. That alone, it sounds crazy, but that could be a realistic possibility. I went to a Nashville SC game last year, and they have a dedicated stadium to that team, but they also have an NFL stadium for the Tennessee Titans. It would not surprise me at all if Messi was going to play in Nashville, if they said, for this game, you ain't playing in your stadium, we're taking the NFL stadium. That's crazy. Like that, Los Angeles. They could go to the Rose Bowl. They could do all kind of stuff, especially LA with the South American influence that they have there. There's no telling how many people would go to these games. Just that alone, to go from selling out a 18,000 seat arena to all of a sudden everywhere Messi goes, you're selling out a 50, 60,000 seat stadium. It's crazy.
Put a $2,000 deposit in on 2024 season tickets for a chance. And that deposit is non-refundable. And I got a buddy who just did it. So people are going crazy. Wow. The tickets are out of control. From this morning, I got rich friends, and they don't work in this business. From this morning, you got tickets that were 50, 60 bucks. They're now $600, $700. That's just from this becoming official. So there's tons of demand. And I think if you're Inter Miami, you don't want to be putting Lionel Messi in a Lego stadium in Fort Lauderdale. You need him to be in Miami and on a proper stage for this player, because there's going to be no shortage of demand. We've seen that in the last 12 to 24 hours already.
Well, that's ripping people off, though, isn't it? That's another story.
It's
but
business, Craig.
Well, I'm sorry, but that, no. That's, you know, there's signing Lionel Messi, and then there's pumping ticket prices up like that. That's just ripping.
Craig, sorry, I should point out this is on the secondary market where these tickets are exploding. I don't want Inter Miami to catch any unnecessary strays.
No, well,
yeah.
All right. Well, I don't.
Somebody's taking advantage.
I don't care.
Looking for Craig on his soapbox.
I don't care.
What about the
Business is business. But let me know, ladies and gentlemen, in the comments below, what do you think? Are you a casual soccer fan? Have you ever watched the MLS? Will you watch now because of Messi? Will you be interested in watching his full season in Inter Miami? Will Apple TV, if you don't have it, will you buy it just for that? You know, let me know in the comments below what you think about this. If you're not a soccer fan, or if you are a soccer fan, how this affects your view of our sweet dear MLS. Thank you for watching. I will see you on the next video.